Welcome to Echoes of Hollywood. We remember them as children because that is how television and movies preserved them, young, hopeful, and forever untouched by time. But when the cameras stopped, they had to grow up just like the rest of us. Some found extraordinary success, others quietly walked away, and a few faced heartbreaking struggles no child should have known. Today, we'll discover what became of the young stars who once grew up before our eyes. Jodie Foster was already working before most children had learned what a career meant, but Taxi Driver revealed an astonishing maturity while she was still a teenager. Unlike many young performers, Foster successfully crossed into adult roles, later becoming an Oscar-winning actress and respected director. Now 63, her journey remains one of Hollywood's rarest stories. Childhood fame became a beginning, not a burden. Drew Barrymore captured hearts at 7 as little Gertie in E.T. the Extraterrestrial, yet behind that joyful face came a childhood overwhelmed by fame and unusually adult experiences. Her teenage years brought addiction and rehabilitation, but the story didn't end there. Now 51, Barrymore has rebuilt herself as an actress, producer, and television host, turning a troubled beginning into an extraordinary second chance. Macaulay Culkin became the face of childhood stardom when Home Alone turned a 10-year-old boy into one of the world's most recognizable actors. The pressure surrounding that success was enormous, and Culkin later stepped away from acting for years. Now 45, he works selectively and lives far beyond that frenzy. Kevin McAllister stayed young forever. Culkin was finally allowed to grow up. Leonardo DiCaprio was still a teenager when Growing Pains introduced him to television audiences, before What's Eating Gilbert Grape revealed just how serious his talent could become. Rather than being trapped by early fame, he grew into one of his generation's defining movie stars. Now 51, DiCaprio represents the exceptional child performer whose greatest achievements were still waiting beyond adolescence. Christian Bale was only 13 when Empire of the Sun placed an enormous dramatic responsibility on his young shoulders. The attention that followed could easily have defined him forever, but Bale deliberately built a remarkably different adult career. Now 52, the boy audiences first watched surviving wartime chaos became an Oscar-winning actor known for extraordinary transformations, almost erasing the child star he once was. Kirsten Dunst was only 12 when Interview with the Vampire revealed a confidence far beyond her years, earning her a Golden Globe nomination. Unlike many child performers, she moved naturally into teenage and adult roles, from Bring It On to Spider-Man. Now 44, Dunst has built an acclaimed career without ever being imprisoned by the little girl audiences first discovered. Brooke Shields grew up under an extraordinary level of public attention, becoming a model and screen star before she was old enough to understand the controversies surrounding her image. The Blue Lagoon made her internationally famous at 15. Now 61, after decades of acting, reinvention, and speaking openly about her experiences, Shields can finally tell the story of childhood fame in her own voice. River Phoenix possessed the rare kind of young talent that made audiences wonder what he might become. Stand By Me introduced his sensitivity, while Running on Empty earned him an Oscar nomination before he was 20. But there would be no long adulthood to follow. Phoenix died in 1993 at only 23, leaving his promise permanently unfinished, and generations still imagining the career that might have been. Corey Feldman seemed almost inseparable from 1980s childhood cinema, appearing in The Goonies, Stand By Me, and The Lost Boys before adulthood arrived with far greater difficulties. He later spoke publicly about addiction and abuse he said he experienced around the entertainment industry. Now 55, Feldman continues performing, while his story remains a sobering reminder that childhood fame can hide painful realities audiences never see. Ke Huy Quan won hearts as Short Round in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, then returned in The Goonies. But as he grew older, meaningful acting opportunities became scarce, and he eventually worked behind the camera. Decades later came an extraordinary reversal. Everything Everywhere All at Once brought him back, and an Oscar. Now 54, his second act was worth waiting for. Jonathan Brandis became a teenage heartthrob through Ladybugs and Sequest DSV, his face appearing across bedroom walls and fan magazines throughout the early 1990s. Yet as those years passed, major opportunities became harder to find. Brandis died by suicide in 2003 at only 27. His story remains especially painful because audiences remember the smiling young star while knowing how little of his struggle they could see. Henry Thomas was only 10 when E.T. the Extraterrestrial gave cinema one of its most unforgettable childhood performances. Rather than chasing the enormous celebrity surrounding the film, Thomas built a quieter, remarkably steady acting career as an adult. Now 54, he remains active on screen, proving that surviving childhood fame sometimes means allowing the spotlight to soften while continuing to do the work. Elijah Wood began acting before adolescence and quickly became one of Hollywood's busiest young performers, but childhood fame never became the ceiling of his career. Years later, The Lord of the Rings transformed him into Frodo for an entirely new generation. Now 45, Wood continues choosing distinctive projects, a rare example of a young actor who grew beyond childhood without losing himself along the way. Joseph Gordon-Levitt spent his teenage years becoming familiar to millions on Third Rock from the Sun, but he refused to let sitcom fame determine his adulthood. After stepping away to attend college, he returned through challenging independent films before reaching major productions like Inception. Now 45, Gordon-Levitt's journey shows that sometimes growing beyond a childhood image requires leaving it behind first. Kieran Culkin appeared alongside his brother Macaulay in Home Alone before building his own identity through films like Igby Goes Down. Rather than becoming trapped by childhood fame, his greatest recognition arrived decades later with Succession. Now 43, Culkin has become an Oscar-winning actor, proving that for some child performers, the most remarkable chapter begins long after everyone expects it to. Tatum O'Neal was only 10 when Paper Moon made her the youngest competitive Oscar winner in history. Yet behind that extraordinary achievement lay a childhood and adulthood marked by family turmoil, addiction, and painful personal struggles. Now 62, O'Neal has endured serious health challenges and recovery. Her story asks a difficult question: what does early success mean when growing up becomes the harder battle? Hayley Mills became one of Disney's most beloved young stars through Pollyanna and The Parent Trap, her warmth making her part of countless family memories. But growing beyond that wholesome image proved complicated as adult roles changed and Hollywood moved forward. Now 80, Mills remains connected to acting and her remarkable past. The little girl audiences adored, having lived an entire lifetime beyond the screen. Heather O'Rourke was only 5 when Steven Spielberg noticed her, and Poltergeist soon made her one of the most recognizable children in horror history. Tragically, there would be no adulthood beyond that famous role. O'Rourke died suddenly in 1988 at just 12 from complications related to an undiagnosed intestinal condition. Her films preserved a childhood that real life ended heartbreakingly early. Brad Renfro had never acted professionally when the client made the 11-year-old an overnight Hollywood discovery. More acclaimed performances followed, but adolescence and adulthood brought substance abuse and legal difficulties alongside his work. Renfro died from an accidental heroin overdose in 2008 at only 25. His brief life remains a painful reminder that extraordinary talent can arrive long before someone is prepared for fame. Mara Wilson became one of the 1990s most recognizable children through Mrs. Doubtfire and Matilda, yet growing older changed her relationship with Hollywood. Feeling increasingly uncomfortable with acting and the industry's expectations, she stepped away and turned toward writing. Now 39, Wilson has returned selectively to performance, showing that leaving childhood stardom behind can sometimes be the healthiest way to rediscover your own voice. Lindsay Lohan seemed unstoppable after The Parent Trap, Freaky Friday, and Mean Girls carried her from child performer to teenage superstar. But intense media scrutiny, substance-related struggles, and legal troubles soon overwhelmed the work itself. After years away from Hollywood center, she gradually rebuilt her career. Now 40, Lohan's comeback offers something her younger self rarely received: the chance to live and work on her own terms. Jake Lloyd was only 8 when he was chosen to play young Anakin Skywalker in Star Wars Episode I: The Phantom Menace. The enormous attention surrounding the film was followed by harsh criticism, and Lloyd soon left acting. Now 37, his life has included serious personal and health struggles. His story remains a sobering reminder that children can carry consequences from fame they never chose. Jonathan Lipnicki was just 5 when his glasses, smile, and scene-stealing performance in Jerry Maguire made him instantly lovable. Stuart Little followed, but as childhood ended, the major roles became less visible. Lipnicki never completely abandoned acting and later spoke openly about bullying and anxiety. Now 35, he continues performing, a familiar child star who quietly grew beyond the image audiences remembered. Anna Chlumsky became inseparable from childhood memories after My Girl made 11-year-old Veda Sultanfuss unforgettable. But rather than spend adolescence chasing fame, Chlumsky eventually left acting, attended college, and worked outside Hollywood. Years later, she returned on her own terms, earning acclaim for Veep. Now 45, her journey proves that stepping away from childhood fame can sometimes make an adult career possible. Freddie Highmore was still a child when Finding Neverland and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory revealed an unusually thoughtful young performer. Instead of becoming another forgotten child star, he quietly made the difficult transition into adult roles, eventually leading Bates Motel and The Good Doctor. Now 34, Highmore's story shows that early fame can endure when talent is allowed to mature without overwhelming the person behind it. Daniel Radcliffe was only 11 when Harry Potter transformed him into one of the most recognizable children on Earth. Growing beyond such an enormous character could have been impossible, yet Radcliffe deliberately chose theater, independent films, and unconventional roles rather than chasing another franchise. Now 37, he has built something surprisingly rare: an adult career that exists comfortably alongside the childhood phenomenon that made him famous. Rupert Grint grew up before millions as Ron Weasley, spending much of his childhood and adolescence inside the Harry Potter phenomenon. When the series ended, he chose a quieter path, taking selective film, television, and stage roles rather than pursuing constant celebrity. Now 37, Grint seems remarkably comfortable beyond the frenzy, a child star who discovered that adulthood didn't have to compete with his younger self. Natalie Portman was only 12 when Lion, the Professional revealed a remarkable screen presence, but early attention also exposed her to uncomfortable aspects of being a young actress in the public eye. She continued acting while prioritizing education, eventually becoming an Oscar winner for Black Swan. Now 45, Portman represents the rare child performer whose intellectual and artistic identity expanded alongside her fame. Scarlett Johansson began acting professionally as a child. Appearing in films like The Horse Whisperer before adulthood transformed her into one of Hollywood's biggest stars. Rather than being permanently remembered as a young performer, she successfully crossed into mature roles, from Lost in Translation to the Marvel Universe. Now 41, Johansson's childhood career feels less like a vanished chapter than the quiet foundation of everything that followed. Kristen Stewart was already acting as a child when Panic Room revealed her striking screen confidence, years before Twilight made her a global phenomenon. Growing beyond Bella Swan required taking risks, and Stewart deliberately turned toward independent cinema and challenging roles. Now 36, she has earned an Oscar nomination and critical respect. The young actress once defined by a franchise successfully rewriting her own Hollywood identity. Keira Knightley began working as a child and was only 14 when Star Wars briefly placed her inside a worldwide phenomenon. Bend It Like Beckham and Pirates of the Caribbean soon made her a major star, while adult roles brought Oscar recognition. Now 41, Knightley has navigated fame selectively, proving that an early start need not trap an actress inside the image audiences first remember. Shia LaBeouf grew up before television audiences on Even Stevens before Transformers propelled him into blockbuster stardom. Yet adulthood brought highly publicized controversies, legal troubles, and serious allegations that increasingly overshadowed his performances. Now 40, LaBeouf continues acting, though his story remains complicated. The funny Disney child audiences once knew became an example of how difficult fame, adulthood, and accountability can become. Anna Paquin was only 11 when The Piano made her the second youngest competitive Oscar winner in history. Rather than becoming another child star cautionary tale, she moved steadily into adult work, from X-Men to the television success of True Blood. Now 44, Paquin has spent decades outgrowing that extraordinary childhood achievement, building a career that became much larger than the award that introduced her. Taylor Lautner began acting young, but nothing prepared him for the enormous attention that arrived when Twilight turned Jacob Black into a worldwide teenage obsession. After the franchise ended, major movie roles became less frequent, and Lautner stepped back from Hollywood's relentless pace. Now 34, he works selectively and speaks openly about that experience, a reminder that escaping fame can sometimes feel as important as achieving it. Alicia Silverstone was still a teenager when Aerosmith videos and The Crush made audiences notice her, before Clueless transformed Cher Horowitz into a defining 1990s character. Later projects never quite recreated that cultural explosion, but Silverstone continued acting while embracing other interests and advocacy. Now 49, she remains inseparable from a role that preserved one unforgettable version of her youth forever. Jerry Mathers became America's familiar little brother as Beaver Cleaver, growing up in millions of living rooms throughout Leave It to Beaver. When the series ended, he stepped away from full-time acting, finished school, and experienced life beyond Hollywood before returning occasionally. Now 78, Mathers carries a remarkable legacy. Generations still remember the boy on television, even though the man lived decades beyond him. Tony Dow spent his adolescence as Wally Cleaver, the dependable older brother viewers welcomed into their homes every week on Leave It to Beaver. Adult life eventually took him beyond that childhood identity into directing and, unexpectedly, accomplished sculpture. Dow died in 2022 at 77. His journey showed that growing beyond a famous childhood role doesn't require erasing it, only finding new ways to create. Barry Livingston joined My Three Sons as Ernie Douglas and spent years growing up before American television audiences. Unlike many child performers, he never completely abandoned acting when childhood ended, instead building a long career through character roles in film and television. Now 72, Livingston offers a quieter success story. The childhood spotlight faded, but the working actor behind it simply kept going. Stanley Livingston became famous as Chip Douglas on My Three Sons, spending 12 seasons moving from childhood toward adulthood while viewers watched alongside him. When that remarkable television run ended, he gradually expanded beyond acting into producing and directing. Now 75, Livingston reminds longtime viewers of something strangely moving. The children television preserved forever continued growing older, just as the families watching them did. Johnny Crawford was only 12 when The Rifleman made Mark McCain one of television's most familiar young faces. Growing beyond that role, he explored music, continued acting, and later celebrated the sounds of an earlier America with his vintage dance orchestra. Crawford died in 2021 at 75. For longtime viewers, however, part of him will always remain that earnest boy beside Lucas McCain. Kevin Corcoran brought a wonderfully mischievous energy to Disney classics such as Old Yeller and Swiss Family Robinson, becoming one of the studio's most recognizable young performers. But adulthood took him in another direction. Corcoran moved behind the camera and built a successful career in television production. He died in 2015 at 66, proving childhood stardom can evolve rather than simply disappear. Mara Habel was only 11 when Mommy Dearest gave her the demanding role of young Christina Crawford, a performance that remained recognizable long after childhood ended. She continued acting but never chased the same level of Hollywood visibility, later working as an acting teacher and coach. Now 55, Habel represents the child performer who grew beyond one unforgettable role without needing lifelong celebrity. Margaret O'Brien could move audiences to tears before most children could fully understand what stardom meant. Meet Me in St. Louis made her one of MGM's most beloved child performers, but the studio era eventually changed around her. Now 89, O'Brien remains a cherished connection to classic Hollywood, a remarkable reminder that the little girl audiences once adored lived an entire lifetime beyond those films. June Lockhart entered films as a teenager long before Lassie and Lost in Space made her one of television's most comforting maternal figures. Unlike many child performers, her career expanded as she matured rather than collapsing with adolescence. Lockhart died in 2025 at the extraordinary age of 100, leaving behind nearly a century-long journey from young actress to beloved television institution. Shirley Temple wasn't merely a child star. During the Depression, she became one of the most famous faces in the world. Yet as childhood ended, Hollywood's fascination faded, and Temple eventually chose an extraordinary second life in public service and diplomacy. She died in 2014 at 85. Few child stars ever traveled so far beyond the image that first made them beloved. Jackie Coogan became a worldwide child star beside Charlie Chaplin in The Kid, only to discover as an adult that much of his childhood fortune was gone. His experience helped inspire legal protections for young performers. Decades later, the Addams Family gave him fame again as Uncle Fester. Coogan died in 1984 at 69, completing one of Hollywood's most remarkable journeys of loss and reinvention. Diana Sarah Carey was known as Baby Peggy when silent film audiences made her one of America's earliest child superstars. Fame and fortune disappeared before she was even grown, but her story didn't end with Hollywood. She reinvented herself as a writer and historian, eventually documenting the very world that shaped her childhood. Carey died in 2020 at 101, having outlived almost the entire silent era. Deanna Durbin became a teenage sensation whose singing voice and films such as Three Smart Girls helped make her one of Hollywood's highest-paid stars. Then, still only in her 20s, she did something remarkable. She walked away. Durbin settled in France and guarded her privacy for decades. She died in 2013 at 91, having chosen an ordinary private life over extraordinary celebrity. Bobby Driscoll once seemed to have everything a child actor could dream of, from Disney stardom to voicing Peter Pan. But adolescence brought fewer roles, followed by addiction, imprisonment, and isolation. Driscoll died in 1968 at only 31, and his body initially went unidentified. It remains one of Hollywood's saddest contrasts, a child recognized by millions becoming an adult almost completely forgotten. Mickey Rooney Jr. entered show business carrying one of Hollywood's most recognizable family names, appearing as a Mouseketeer before pursuing music and occasional acting. Yet he never chased the enormous celebrity his father had known, eventually moving toward a quieter life and Christian ministry. Rooney died in 2022 at 77, remembered as someone who ultimately chose an identity beyond inherited fame. Claude Jarman Jr. had no acting experience when the yearling transformed the young Nashville boy into an acclaimed child star, earning him a special Juvenile Academy Award. Yet Hollywood never became his entire life. Jarman eventually left acting and built a successful career outside the screen. He died in 2025 at 90, having enjoyed something childhood fame rarely promises: a long life beyond celebrity. Bonita Granville was still a teenager when these three earned her an Academy Award nomination, before Nancy Drew made her a familiar young heroine. As adulthood arrived, Granville gradually moved away from acting and found lasting success behind the scenes as a television producer alongside her husband. She died in 1988 at 65, proving that leaving the screen didn't mean leaving entertainment behind. Freddie Bartholomew became one of the 1930s most celebrated child actors through David Copperfield and Captain's Courageous, commanding extraordinary fame while still a boy. But war service and adulthood changed his direction, and Hollywood's stardom eventually gave way to work in television and advertising. Bartholomew died in 1992 at 67, having built a second life beyond the childhood image cinema preserved forever. Tommy Reddick became a familiar presence in American homes as Jeff Miller, the boy who shared his adventures with Lassie. But after spending much of his childhood before cameras, Reddick eventually became disillusioned with acting and walked away. He later discovered an entirely different passion in computer programming. Reddick died in 1996 at 54, far removed from the television world that first made him famous. Scotty Beckett began charming audiences as a small child in Our Gang and continued working through adolescence, but adulthood brought a painful reversal. Acting opportunities declined while substance abuse, arrests, and personal instability increasingly shaped his later years. Beckett died in 1968 at only 38. His story remains one of childhood Hollywood's darker lessons. Early applause offered no guarantee of a safe adulthood. Brandon DeWilde was only 11 when his haunting performance in Shane earned him an Academy Award nomination and made his face unforgettable. He continued acting into adulthood, though the extraordinary attention of his childhood breakthrough proved difficult to equal. DeWilde died in a traffic accident in 1972 at just 30, leaving audiences with the lingering question of what his mature career might have become. Edward Furlong was 13 when Terminator 2, Judgment Day transformed him from an unknown teenager into one of Hollywood's most recognizable young actors. But adulthood brought addiction, legal troubles, and a career that never regained that early momentum. Now 49, Furlong has continued acting while working on his recovery, a complicated journey far removed from the extraordinary promise of his breakthrough years. Looking at those childhood faces again, perhaps the greatest surprise is realizing how many years have passed for all of us. Some turned early fame into remarkable lives, some found happiness far from Hollywood, while others never received the future they deserved. Yet on those old screens, they remain exactly as we first knew them. Thank you for watching Echoes of Hollywood. We remember the children they were, but tonight, we honor the lives they lived afterward.